When it comes to some of the longest running franchises in the history of Hollywood, the X-Men franchise from Fox will remain on top of most lists because it's something many people grew up with, and it even managed to spawn multiple TV series off of its success. Now, of course, next up we are going to see the X-Men reborn in the MCU, but we know due to legal reasons and contracts that there's still some things that could happen behind the scenes that may or may not lead to the return of multiple actors from the old franchise. Which today brings us to talk about James McAvoy, who of course first played Professor X in X-Men First Class, and he teases a potential return. So all this comes at us from a recent interview that James McAvoy had with Collider. And of course, with comic books still being the hottest thing in the world, or specifically comic book movies, I shouldn't really say comic books because, you know, they're not, but the comic book movie genre is not slowing down. As a matter of fact, year over year, it's actually happening to increase by huge amounts of percentages. So this thing is not slowing down or going anywhere. So he was asked by Collider if there is a potential way or chance that he could come back as Professor X, and what does the future hold for him. And without reading everything that he said or going into all of it, he says that he feels quite satisfied with what he did with Professor X, that performance, and what he brought to the table. But when it comes to the future, he said never say never. And they kind of go on and talk about it in comparison to the James Bond thing. Because if you look at that at one point was well, this is this actor's last film. That's that actor's last film. And then they come back for a couple more. Or, hey, we're done with this. But then they go back to it. So I understand what he's saying here. And the never say never thing is the interesting one that everybody wants to focus on. Because we just don't know. I personally believe, I know some people will hate me for this, that he was a tremendous Professor X. Take out the bad performances or this wooden/stale performance he sometimes had, when quite clearly everybody else had that same type of performance in Dark Phoenix. But look at how he managed to take what Patrick Stewart did, use that, mimic that, and then add a little bit of his own flair as if he was younger. It perfectly worked. He was great. In my opinion, he was one of the best castings in the Fox X-Men franchise, up there with Patrick Stewart. So I would honestly love it if he did come back. And he's still young enough that if he wanted to, and if they wanted to bring him back and roll over any of his contracts, which we know he has, I believe, one left over, but who knows? They could do it, and I think people would just accept it. It's like, oh, sure, it's a variant. He looks the same. Cool. Do it. And we really have no idea how they're going to approach this. I mean, there's plenty of rumors of what they might do with the X universe. And who knows if Deadpool is still going to potentially be set in the old universe where we could see him once again. So I think in due time we'll find out, but I honestly would not be opposed to him returning. I mean, I really do love him as an actor. I think he's great. He's given stellar performances pretty much every time I've seen him. And if he was back as Professor X, I would not complain.